All right. We're live. So, Senator, you want to kick it off or do you want me?
Yeah, so I'll kick it off and just thank everyone for coming. And it's just really, really great to see everyone. It would be nice to be in person, but to be honest with you, it's a lot easier just to not have to travel an hour to get there. But I think we should start out by thanking the department and for helping us out here. But we do have an hour stop because Dana has to leave at 11 o'clock. So Tiffany, Ms. Secretary, do you have to leave as well?
I do not.
Oh, okay. So but I would think by 2 hours we're done. I allow myself 2 hours and we might not even need that much time. But anyway, I think it's very important for everybody to introduce themselves because this is just not an oversight committee of just legislators. This is a mix of business and labor and regular people. So Laura and Nathan, you want to start, and Steve, you guys want to introduce yourselves first, I guess.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Ned. Go ahead. You want to say something?
Yeah. First of all, I just want to thank the department for being here and just want to let you know that I'm looking forward to hearing the update on where we are with legislation that we passed last year. And I know that we're going to introduce ourselves, but let me first welcome my good friend and colleague, C.T. Wilson, Delegate C.T. Wilson, who has joined the Oversight Committee. We're glad to have you here. Looking forward to working with you. With that, we can just go ahead and around and introduce ourselves. Laura.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Laura Addis. I staff the House Economic Matters Committee as well as the Joint Oversight Committee.
Good morning, Nathan McCurdy. I staff the Senate Finance Committee as well as the Oversight Committee.
Good morning, Steve Ross. I write UI fiscal notes and I also staff this joint committee.
Okay, Callie.
Good morning, everybody. Kaylee Locklear on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association.
Dana.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the Assistant Secretary for the Division of Unemployment Insurance for Maryland Department of Labor.
And Madam Secretary.
Good morning, Chair Gosmeyer. I'm Tiffany Robinson, Secretary of Maryland Department of Labor.
I apologize. And CT, you already.
Yep, I'm CT.
Okay. Senator Hershey.
Good morning, everyone. Senator Steve Hershey on the Senate Finance Committee.
Andrew.
Morning, Andrew Griffin, Vice President of Government Affairs, the Maryland Chamber of Commerce.
And there's Donna.
Donna Edwards, President of Maryland State and DC AFL-CIO.
And there's Mike.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Mike O'Halloran, State Director for NFIB Maryland. And I'll actually be switching over here to my computer momentarily. So if I drop off, that'll be why.
Nice beard, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah,
we've been working on it.
Welcome addition. All right, so Steve, you already said hi. Basu.
Righto, my name is Anibon Basu. I'm an economist with Sage Policy Group Incorporated and privileged to be here with you this morning.
Thank you. Jeremy? Or Mike? Is that it then? Okay. All right. I guess, Ned, what did you want to do?
I was just, since we only have an hour with the Deputy Secretary, if we can quickly do an overview of where we are, but then move right into the bills, and I'd like to move into the questions that we have. So, and I know that a lot of our questions are probably going to follow your presentation, but if you can kind of quickly go through it and get us to the legislation, that would be great.
Okay, okay, because of the time, that's the way we're just going to refigure a little bit. So, Dana or Secretary, Madam Secretary, Madam Deputy Secretary,
I'm Assistant Secretary.
Assistant.
Yeah, I'm not taking Dave McGlone's role, but Tiffany, I want to present.
Thank you, Chair Klausmeyer and Chair Carey. We only have about 7 kind of overview slides, which I think is important for this particular oversight committee that hasn't been kind of as involved as some of the legislators with every step of the way, what we have faced and accomplished and been challenged with in the Division of Unemployment Insurance over the past 18 months. So I will go through those 7 slides, those first 7 slides really briefly. We can come back to them or take questions. And of course, your members can keep this information going forward, and then we can have plenty of time to talk about the legislation. So if we can just move right to the next slide. There we go. I think this is really important, especially for the members of this committee, just to understand that we have received over 2.7 million claims during this pandemic. It's quite historical, as is the $12.6 billion that we've paid out in state and federal benefits. We've mentioned these numbers a few times before, but I think it's important to kind of understand that those claimants have filed 27.6 million weekly claim certifications, and we have paid 23.6 million of those. So oftentimes people think that when someone files an unemployment insurance claim, they are approved or denied, and it's done. But these claimants are our customers every single week as we are redetermining their eligibility in their weekly required certification that's required by federal and state law every single week along the way. And as in an unusual situation like a pandemic, we, as many of you know, have claimants that have now surpassed the 52 weeks, which in state and federal law means they have to for their benefits for a new benefit year. So that's a lot of issues. As you can see in the next bullet, 2.5 million claim issues have been resolved. Oftentimes one claim presents multiple issues, and an issue can be resolved in 1 week and a new issue can arise 2 weeks later. So it's a lot of work for our team, which is why we've had to hire so many staff, and it's why it's been so challenging for unemployment insurance divisions across the country. But regarding staffing, we have hired over 1,800 new employees. We have a virtual agent, which is a new way that claimants can communicate with us, and that program has handled almost 3 million conversations. And of course, I have to highlight that we averted nearly 6,000 layoffs through the work sharing program. We're really proud of that, and saved over 21,000 jobs through our layoff aversion fund last week for small businesses. So we'll go to the next slide. This is just a picture of 2021 claim filing. We have received over 1.1 million new claims just since January of 2021. I think by now everyone knows that our weekly claim data is broken down by county on our website. And those new numbers are updated every Thursday morning along with a USDOL report. But as you can see in the spike from the last, since May, we've seen a lot of fraud in our system, as you may have seen a press release that went out this week, and our weekly claim filings have spiked. So next slide. This is the overview that we kind of publish every single week. So our benefits paid, our total claims, complete claims filed, which are the claims that have completed their weekly certifications and requested payment. We've processed 97% of those claims, paid 82% of them, denied 15%, and we currently have 3% of those claims pending, the vast majority of which are regular unemployment insurance claims that have disputes from an employer. Those are the ones that are the most complex. Oftentimes there's multiple employers in a base period, multiple issues that are disputed, and it takes a long time for us to investigate those issues to make the right decision because we serve both the employer and the employee. And of course we have to maintain the integrity of the trust fund, and we're dealing with historical volume. So 3% pending is really no different than pre-pandemic times. The number is higher, obviously, because our volume is higher. So we can move to the next slide. This just gives you a breakdown and picture. You can see that 2/3 of our payments, the yellow and the gray lines, have come from PUA and PEUC. Those are the federal benefits. So the orange mark is our regular UI funding that comes from our trust fund. That means that about 2/3 of our claimants in the system are on the federal benefits. Next slide. So I'm not going to read all these words to you because we issued a press release this week, but I did want to highlight that we have detected over 500,000 fraudulent claims in our system, filed in our system since May 2nd. That's pretty staggering. Since the beginning of the pandemic, over 1.3 million claims have been flagged and investigated by Maryland Unemployment Insurance and confirmed as fraudulent. That's 92% of all claims that we flag are confirmed as fraudulent. As I mentioned, we are fiduciaries of the trust fund. We represent the employer and the employee. And for those reasons, we have to maintain the integrity of the system and investigate every single one of those claims that have been flagged. I can tell you that our new beacon system has given us an advantage over other states because we do have the ability to change and watch what the fraudsters are doing and work with state and federal partners to consistently add and change the triggers in our system to identify these fraudulent claims. So we can move to the next slide. I'm sure some in this committee are interested in the health of our trust fund. We were pleased to have significant first quarter contributions coming in. So our balance is currently over 400 million. And we have a loan balance of over 68 million. And I will remind you that that loan is interest free until September 5th. We did have to borrow money from the US Treasury in the early part of the year when our trust fund was depleted. But going forward, I will remind you that the governor and General Assembly took many actions before and throughout the session to provide relief specifically for employers. The governor's executive order reduced an individual employer's tax burden by not charging them for in their experience rating for any layoffs during the pandemic. And then of course, the Relief Act further extended that policy. The Relief Act also gave additional relief for small businesses, allowing businesses that employ less than 50 people to defer paying their unemployment insurance taxes for 2021 until January 31st of 2022. And we find that many businesses are taking that option. And in addition, and maybe the most important piece to remember is that the governor and our legislative leadership announced during session that $1.1 billion would be made available from the American Rescue Plan funding for our Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. This is historic, and this is something that we think that Maryland is the only one that did anything with this magnitude in terms of setting aside funding for the trust fund to benefit our unemployment insurance program and our employers. And this, of course, was in coordination with Senate Bill 811, which will guarantee our employers a Table C tax rating for years 2022 and 2023. And going to the next slide, I think everyone probably knows but that our federal benefits will be ending on July 3rd. And that means that starting the week of July 4th, the Division of Unemployment Insurance will launch or reinstate our search for work requirements. You may remember that searching for work is a federal requirement to remain eligible for unemployment insurance benefits in normal times. States were given the flexibility to waive those requirements during the pandemic. And many states have reinstated, and we are doing the same starting the week of July 4th. So in order to maintain their eligibility, claimants will have to come into the system and log their reemployment activities every single week. Our claimants have already received initial communication about this. It is extremely detailed. I know Senator Klausmeier loves for us to communicate in detail and regularly with our customers to give them clear instructions. And I can assure you our claimants have seen screenshots and tutorials with links and very clear instructions as to exactly what they will have to do to comply with this reinstated requirement. It's actually more flexible than it was before, where they had to apply for 3 jobs per week. Now we have a list of 30 different reemployment activities, and our customers will register with the Maryland Workforce Exchange and complete 3 reemployment activities per week. These activities might include going through an big interview session with getting feedback on or taking a resume class or a workshop. And of course, those activities must include at least one job application. So we're excited for that to kick off because we know we have a lot of employers that are short-staffed, and we hope that this will help both our employees get connected to those available jobs. And the next slide. Is our legislation. We obviously, I know Senator Kerry would like to have time for questions. So I went through that quickly, and we have made progress on many of these 6 bills that were passed in this last session. We obviously have multiple reports that are due July 1st and at the end of the year. So we are working on those, and we'll be excited to share lots of information with this committee that comes in those reports. To give you, a few highlights regarding the payment plans that we are putting into regulation. I will tell you that on the first bill, employer contributions and reimbursement payments, we already had, I know we talked during session about the fact that we already had very flexible payment plan options. So we're putting all the expanded flexible options into regulation. But at this point in time, we find more employers seeking the deferral option on their tax payments as opposed to the payment plans. We do have requests for some payment plans, but not a lot. A lot are taking advantage of that deferral option. Like I said, we have reports coming July 1st. In relation to the last bill on this slide, the work sharing bill, I'm very pleased to report that we have updated and included all federal guidelines for the expanded eligibility and changed the definition of an employee in accordance with that bill. And that is pretty much complete. We're really happy about the expanded eligibility and the work that we're able to do with so many employers who are bringing employees back under a work sharing plan. But with that, I think it might be easier if I turn it back over to the committee and we can answer specific questions. I believe the rest of my slides are resources for you to keep all of our links and frequently asked questions we'd like for you to have access to. So I'll stop and allow the committee to ask us questions.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Secretary. So, if there are questions about the bills, if you guys just kind of, Senator Klausmeyer and I'll kind of do our best to look down through to see who might be asking a question. If you raise your hand, that will help us, I guess.
No, well, do you want to do that thing where the reactions and then you raise your hand? Uh-oh, of course I lost everybody.
There we go. Delegate Wilson. I see Delegate Wilson's hand. Delegate, you lead us off.
Thank you very much. Madam Secretary, I have a few questions. First, I just want to start with the fraud, and I brought this up before, and I will continue to bring this up. When we speak about this, you talk about the fraud for unemployment, and again, it always rings the same way as when you hear welfare fraud. You don't think about perception is very important in this matter, and to my knowledge, a vast majority of the fraud that you're discussing is actually identity theft. It is not individuals that can be working, applying for either double the benefits or applying for benefits. So what I would like to have is that broken down to how much of this is actually, since we keep using the word fraud, which is very misleading, how much of this is actually identity theft, non-Marylanders, or however you want to lay it out, versus how much of this are individuals who are basically trying to get over on the system by either getting paid while they collect unemployment or double down and get and draw down from the same source twice. Because it is very misleading to continue to hear about this fraud in such massive numbers and think of our citizens as basically trying to take advantage of a system. So that's the first question I have. I really would like that information broken down a little more detailed than just general fraud, because it's misleading. I brought this up, I think, when you briefed Economic Matters in the very same fashion. And this time I'll just lay an ask out as well, so we don't confuse individuals with what's really going on when there are people from other countries and other states actually trying to prey on the Maryland system. Secondly, in line with that, because as you've noted, there are that these questionable claims are flagged. Well, my worry is, what's the timeline between them being flagged and them being resolved? Because we have individuals who have been flagged, who actually have legitimate issues. In my county, they have legitimate issues. Now, for whatever reason, they're being flagged, which is fine. But my worry is, it seems to have gone on for weeks, and now months, where these individuals that have been flagged have contacted me. So they're a real person. And I want to know, what's the average timeline between flagging and resolving? Either if you want to do it by fraud or however we resolve the issue, to find out what that timeline is. And again, this is another ask. Because and lastly, when it comes, again, this whole fraud thing, and what we're getting with the same thing, these are the individuals who are not getting their claims are not going through for whatever reason, be it fraud or just mass confusion. They're losing contact with their case managers for weeks on end. And I know this is an issue at the very beginning, and I know this was a staffing issue. This is us being caught behind the 8 ball, because again, who could have predicted this? But we're still, to a smaller degree, but still having the same issue of my constituents not getting their red flags taken off, not receiving their benefits, losing everything from their houses to their cars and things of that nature, because our team is not getting back with them. And I understand sometimes there's issues with we don't have a resolution, but even reaching back out to them to tell them what the status of their claim is, they're not even able to find out the status of their claim. And so for me, that uncertainty is devastating on in human nature. But when you're trying to run a family, keep your your family afloat, the uncertainty. So they don't know why they've been flagged. They don't know how long they're going to be flagged for, and they don't know the status of their claim. Those are the big issues that I'm having personally as a legislator. The other things are asked because I do want to make sure that we have an understanding of this red flag. And I know we're very proud of all the fraud that we've identified, but I want to know just what that timeline is for the individuals, the resolution, so we understand what our constituents can expect if something is to happen, i.e. their claim gets flagged. That would be my first question, Ned. I have several more, but I will bogart a session if you let me.
I was just gonna, if you guys have an initial response to Delegate Wilson's questions, and then we can always get back to him.
Yeah, I'll let y'all come back around.
Thank you, Delegate Wilson. That was several questions in your one first question. So let me address it. And I'm actually going to ask my Assistant Secretary Dana to chime in, because she deals with these claims every day and tell you better how we might be able to break that down for you. The one thing I wanted to remind you is we have tried really hard to differentiate in terms of that types of fraud. We do see both types of fraud in our system. However, the press release that just went out really kind of emphasized the fact that we have seen scams, and we're trying to protect Marylanders from clicking on links, asking for their identity information because of that, the magnitude of identity theft. There's been lots of federal articles. There's a federal task force. That is an issue that we don't typically see at this level. But it hit us in the pandemic. So that's what the first issue. I guess I'll in terms of the timeline, I also wanted to let you know that we have a new vendor on board. They were selected just a couple of weeks ago, LexisNexis, through a competitive emergency procurement in order to help us get through, automate the fraud review process and the identity verification. They are literally still being integrated into our system so that they can complete that work more quickly for us. But I'll turn it over to Dana Freeman so she can help answer that question for you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Secretary. Delegate Wilson, we will provide you with the breakdown of the types of fraud.
Thank you.
Requested in those categories. We keep that readily available. The timeline, I think you asked for from when a claim is flagged for fraud to resolution. There's a couple of interactive things that draw the timeline out. So when we flag a claim for fraud, we let that claimant know in their portal that they're to provide certain types of documentation. I think we give them 7-10 days to do it. That's when we shake out most of the fraud, when Secretary said 98% of them don't respond. So those go over to the category. After that 10-day, and that claimant has responded, we route those work items to our resources to review to make sure those documents are adequate. Sometimes there's a claimant who may provide the documentation in one category when it's supposed to be in two different ones. Sometimes the documentation is not clear, but at that point we have someone going and working with that claimant to get the proper documentation. So sometimes there's a lot of back and forth. So could be anywhere from at least more than 10 days, because we give them 10 days to respond, to less than 21 days to, if the documents are all clear and check out, then we'll release it. Sometimes there's a lot of other problems with it. Now and it depends on where that flag comes in their claim. If the flag was for someone who filed initially, that's a different timeline than one where flag was filed from somebody filing the weekly certification. We take care of the weekly certifications within 7 days, because there's certain rules associated. You can't block payment. If you see potential fraud, you must investigate it within 7 days or release payment. So it depends on the nature of the claim as well. But so the timeline varies on when the flag is detected and the response of the claimant and the customer.
If there's any way, Dana, and if I could just get some of this, again, I'm trying to write as much down as I can, just follow back, because, and also like just what's an average response time for my constituents who, again, these are, I'm assuming, because I've talked to them, they're real people with real problems. Those are the ones that I'm
sorry. I know their third question was the most important, where they don't know the status of their claim. Yeah. And we have several ways they can look at the status of their claim. By going into their claimant portal, and the claimant maintenance screen provides all sorts of information on the nature and status of the current claim, any previous claims, and where it is, how long it's been. But we have to be more we need to be better at educating the claimants how to read the claimant portal, because there's a whole lot of information on there. And
I'm sorry, but when you read that portal, the problem is when week after week that information doesn't change. Ergo, it's just a bland, whatever that status is, it doesn't change, and they can't get in touch with their case manager. So I do understand there is a status bar, and there is something written in that status bar. However, I don't believe that fairly indicates the status if it doesn't change week after week after week, and they can't get in touch with their case manager. That's where I'm stuck. So I understand your point, and yes, I do understand they have something in there. I just don't believe that many times it's kept in real time, and it actually updates them, because they can be very vague explanations as to the status.
Okay, well,
Ned, you get ready to kick me off?
Yeah, well,
let me say this judiciously. Every claimant that has some pending information, we've either reached out to them and communicated with them with one of our omni channels. Now, we can't really share, the full situation of a person's claim. But suffice it to say that no one has not been contacted or reached. And there's usually issues associated with the claim that keeps it in the pending status.
Well, Dana, to make sure I don't get kicked off, and this is not my last meeting, I'm going to reach out to you offline, because Absolutely. Ned looks very frustrated with me. So I will concede the rest of my hour so the rest of the people can talk.
You call me anytime and I'll explain the whole process to you.
We thank you for giving back an hour of your time. Before we go on, because we do have other questions, I just wanted to point out about the same on this issue, and Delegate Charkoudian has also talked about this, and the issue is that it's not the status of the claim. You're supposed to be providing them a status plus the timeline, the resolution. I think the issue is people don't know when it's going to be resolved, and that's the frustrating part for them. And I thought we were supposed to do that as part of Delegate Charkoudian's House Bill 10002. So,
Okay, I just would like to say, I have, that this oversight committee, there are, and I consider guests here, if we're going to try to take their questions first. I see Donna has her hand up, and the
Kelly.
guests, because you usually do not get in on our meetings that we have like every other week. So if you have any questions, please raise your hand now. I think that's important that we let everyone have their say here today. And
Yeah.
we can go, as legislators, we can go ahead and do that. And if not, we'll have another one. We can have another oversight committee in 2 weeks. So whatever.
So with that, we'll go ahead. I see Donna, and then Kaylee has her hand up as well.
Yes, it's important
Well,
to hear from them.
yeah, I mean, mine go along the same way. And, you know, people are not getting, maybe they got contacted 3 months ago and they're still in the same status. I heard what you said, Dana, that everybody gets contacted, but there are still so many people that really are out there in limbo, and maybe it's all up there on a screen, but they're not getting a real person talking to them. I want, though, to get more clarity on what you consider a fraudulent claim. Am I understanding that fraudulent claims, if I go on and I sign up and I don't provide any documentation, that's a fraudulent claim? That's flagged as possible fraud?
No, what we have is certain suspicious activity protocols that we apply to the applications. And if there's a hit on it, then we flag it. And I don't want to go into detail what those protocols are. But so we flag it for potential fraud. And then we investigate it to see if in fact it is fraud. Now, the predominant type of fraud that's presented during the pandemic is a new type of fraud for the agency, the identity theft.
I get that. So I wanted to clarify, though, so that if there's an applicant that has applied but did not provide any documentation, that would be flagged.
Yeah, no, well, if they're flagged, we don't, whatever the application, the initial application request of the claimant does not necessarily flag it, and they don't provide it, doesn't flag it for fraud. These suspicious activity protocols is what's determined which applications are flagged for fraud. So we're looking for certain things in the application that has to do with the information they provided.
Oh, okay, because I heard Madam Secretary and you say that we count claims that are filed without documentation.
No, I said, so now once we flag it for fraud, then we'll go reach out to that claimant and said, you need to provide additional identity verification documentation in the following categories. And usually a legitimate claimant does provide that. And that's where we usually shake out the fraud, the bad actors, because they don't respond to that request.
And how long do you keep that case open? If they don't respond, then you just, because they didn't get any money or anything, is that closed, or is that continues to be counted in the fraud count?
So I don't know what we report Thursdays, but we are receiving guidance. We don't know how to handle those and when to close them out. So we've gotten some, they're still open.
So
but there's activity on them. We've got
okay, so we could potentially have thousands of those counted in the fraudulent cases right now, because they're still open. We don't close them yet, even though we don't get the, the documentation in a specific time frame.
Yeah, but we only count them once for reporting purposes.
Okay. There was a bill passed that I remember that required you to staff up by June 1st, so that claimants would have some resolve done quicker. Have you staffed up on that?
So what we did was we utilized our staff aug vendor, Accenture, repurposed and trained them to provide these new services, these new tasks that we want them to fulfill while we do the traditional recruitment internally. So since the passage of the bill, I think we have like 1,100 Accenture who we initially had them doing call center activities, trained up on resolving certain work items, which includes identity theft, some other like proof of income, proof of employment for the federal claims, and some wage recheck things. So we have been training them to do that. And since early June, we have gotten 400 of those 1,100 able to do those things. And we're routing the work orders to them to resolve those work items that we sent to them. And their throughput is really quick.
So, okay, of the 1,840 new employees, the 1,390 call center, are they contractual?
They're not, if you're saying contractual in the sense of state contractual terms.
No, are they private vendor?
Yeah, private vendor.
Okay, and the 350 adjudicators are?
Private vendor.
Okay, and the 100 state staff, permanent or?
Yeah, they're state employees, but they could be contractual.
Correct. Those are a mix of permanent and contractual merit state employees. And I did just want to add that we have actually not stopped hiring, through the pandemic since the increased volume hit us, and since we brought the vendors on board, we have been increasing staffing every single month.
But is that contractual or full-time state employees?
Well, we're doing both. It just takes a lot longer to hire employees, and we're limited in terms of the pins that are available for a full-time merit employee. But we're grateful for the flexibility under the CARES Act with vendors. That's how every state is handling the volume. And so we're grateful to be able to bring on staffing much more quickly through those vendors.
Okay, and the 1,100 that came, do we now have a lot less people in the call center?
No.
Taking these calls?
No. So they're doing both. They're doing both.
So
Okay.
they were staff augmentation vendor, which means they added to our capacity. We certainly didn't decrease anything. We have some of those agents, answering phones, and some of those agents trained to do some of the same work that our internal staff can do.
So let me say this about that. Our staff aug resources, we've trained them to, when they do engage with the customer on the phone, have that ability to resolve some of those issues while on the phone. Where our initial engagement with the vendor was to take the calls. So, there's training involved with that because which we have undergone with them. So the point was not to take anybody off the phones, but give those agents the ability to resolve the issues.
Do more.
Because the way it's done now is that they go out to our internal resources to help resolve that claimant issue. And we're trying to put that power into that vendor's hands.
Okay, and is it the intent that as you get more pins from DBAM that you'll make the contractuals full-time state of that group?
The contractuals that we hire have full-time 40-hour-a-week contract.
Well, but make them permanent employees?
To the extent we have the pins to convert, and there's a period of time, I think it's 6 months, 12 months.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so we have converted a lot of our contractuals that we've hired, but a lot of them are going back to their old jobs. So we try to retain them with attracting and making the work environment one they want to come to. Okay, so that's
they don't want to work for you, Dana? No, you're not saying that. Anyway, I don't want to get in the same trouble that Delegate Wilson got into. So I'm going to.
I will say, my staff comes back each and every day against the odds. So, I mean, the ones that are here. But, you've got to, retain the good people. I mean, good new talent to infuse the program. So that, that's what we're doing. We're coming up with good things to do.
Okay.
We know what you mean.
Thank you.
Can we go
I'll
on
be
to
back.
Kelly?
So-
Or Donna, are you finished? Because Kelly has her hand up.
Yeah, on this subject, yes. There'll be
Okay,
more.
yes, I think we have lots of
Kelly?
subjects. We're going to have a few more of these meetings, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I like to make meetings up, but we have lots to talk about.
Very important meetings. So good morning,
Yes.
Madam Secretary. I just wanted to say thank you. I know we're following up offline on the employee ghosting issue, but with regard to the search for work requirements, I just wanted to confirm that the one job contact and then the 2 reemployment activities, this is something temporary and that we will be returning to the full 3 job contacts. And just wanted to know what conversations have gone on around that. Obviously, July 4th, we go to this kind of new hybrid, but I wanted to learn some more about that.
So,
Good question, Kaylee. Yeah, and I'm going to turn it to you, Dana. I just wanted to mention that we have, this has been a long work in progress between our Unemployment Insurance Division and our Workforce Division to create these activities and to pull together this list of activities that are all designed to, reasonably lead a claimant to a job. So we can certainly have future conversations about when and how that might be revised. I'll turn it over to Dana because I know you were going to speak and maybe you guys have already talked about this.
well, the reemployment activities that a claimant has to engage in to remain eligible for benefits can be them applying for 3 jobs in 1 week. But we've also expanded it where claimants that may want to change careers and be trained somewhere else in another industry, there's that flexibility for them to engage in that type of reemployment activity and still be eligible for work, including engaging in activities that remove the barriers to them getting to work. So we broaden out what it means to actively search for work. And, also in the pandemic, we created a lot of self-guided activities they can engage in that are virtual, that would count. So that's the new model. And there's a lot of, on the MWE website, a claimant there'd be a lot of job opportunities offered there that they can do more than 3 activities a week. And we just have them log and record all of that. And they can look outside of the MWE system for work and just let us know what they did. And we verify it and all of that. But I think that's the direction of reemployment the active search for work is going.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I will say this, so many of our employers are telling us that just people are not applying for jobs and they're not seeing the same level of individuals that they saw before. So I think some of the concerns that our folks have are, and these are very worthwhile and meaningful, I think, requirements, but ultimately, if employees are not coming through the door and applying for work, that's what the problem we're trying to solve here. So I'd love to continue the conversation with you guys. And we are very optimistic about the search for work requirements coming back July 4th. So thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kaylee. I know that we have, I know Senator Klausmeyer, you had some questions because I don't see any more hands. But so I know that you had some questions.
Yes, yes, I do. I think this has been very productive hearing from others rather than just we legislators when we meet every other week. But there's a whole group of different kind of questions that really are very, very helpful. But one thing, Dana, I would just like to know if some claimants contact the department with their claim for assistance, can you go give us a step-by-step process as to what happens and how you follow up on those things?
So if after a claimant has filed a claim and they're
Mhm.
inquiring about the status of their claim, they can
Yeah.
inquire about that status in several different ways. Either through our Salesforce email system, call our phone, our call center, live chat an agent, or go to our virtual agent to see if their question is answered that way. But if you're asking about the example of when they speak to someone,
Yeah,
so that claims agent will immediately look into the claim, that particular claimant's ID, to see what's going on and walk them through what the status is. That claims agent also sees all of the issues that are still pending on the claim, and then marshals those resources to try to resolve any issues that are blocking a decision on the claim. And so a decision could be that they're not eligible, or decision can be that they are eligible. So certain issues that present on a claim does not allow a claimant to go past the claim, to pass the stage where the claim can continue to be processed. So if the issue is about their social security number, alien verification, we see some wages somewhere in another state, that stops that claim. That claimant has to provide us information. Other issues that present on a claim is that when they give the reasons for their separation and the employer provides a different reason for the separation, then those issues, if that claims agent encounters that claimant, would tell them, okay, your claim has to be adjudicated, or is scheduled to be adjudicated, or we're waiting on the employers. Like the claims agent can see what information we're waiting on to make the right determination. So the claimant is walked through the types of issues associated with their claim, whether they have to provide anything else, or if it's just in our court to resolve. Sometimes, because we just launched a new system, there may be some system defects that are blocking that claim that we're waiting for the vendor to repair. And that was probably more so early on after the implementation than now, but some of those are reasons that keep the claim pending, that we have to wait for the vendor to finish repairing those. We gotten this other, I know you've heard about the Bank of America not changing to Wells Fargo. Bank of America put holds on a lot of our claimants that we told them to pay for their personal reasons. And that was a very frustrating time because we could not control them removing those blocks. I mean, I can tell you offline all of the different machinations we had to go through, and that we felt very helpless with claimants who were in that situation. A lot of that's resolved now because we are no longer using BOA, and we have new payment methods for those claimants. So that was a source of frustration.
well, I just a follow-up question. When you have all the phone calls that come through, many times, like if I call, say, Care First, and they'll say this for, they monitor, and they say this phone call is going to be recorded. Do you do any of that just to have recordings of people when they call through?
Yes, the phone calls are recorded and the customer's alerted to that, whether they want to continue the conversation.
Okay, all right.
Every one of them is recorded if the customer consents.
Okay, I'm Delegate Wilson, can you keep it short?
Yeah.
I have a feeling it's difficult, but
No, I have some questions because I know that some of the people have to check out. Diane has to check out. I would like to ask, just on a different matter, just for information for the next meeting, because I'm sure we're going to have one, with regards to our not only our solvency, but a way to increase our maximum weekly benefit amount. Right now it's $430. we saw the value of, the enhanced benefits during the COVID, and would like to find, I know we're going to receive a study soon, but I would try to find ways to increase our maximum benefit requirement, and understand that means, changing our contribution rate. But I would really like to get some background information on, our the way we can increase that, because I think Maryland is surprisingly low. And I know that might mean doing stuff as employee contribution rates, or raising the that $8,500 limit from the employer contribution. Although my wife's going to murder me for saying that. But if we're going to do with the employees, and maybe we should raise it up to something like 30,000. I know states go as high as 52,000 for the maximum range, and obviously at a lower percentage. Basically a way to keep us more solvent in the future, changing the way we put the money in, but also allowing individuals who, because right now we're basically basing our system on a $40,000 income. I don't know that many people that make $40,000. I think a lot of people, make up more than that. They have more bills. So the $430 a month or week max drawdown is unacceptable. So in meetings coming forward, I would like to find solutions to increasing that amount and making sure that we stay solvent. That's one of the goals Ned told me to kind of keep away from for now, because we're answering so many other questions. And I know Senator Hershey talks all the time, so I want to get him before he did. But if you guys could just keep that in mind, Diane, and again, we'll talk offline, okay?
Delegate Wilson, what I'm hearing you say is to ask us to include that in our study.
That would be wonderful. Yes, please.
That would just, we already are doing that. So that's
outstanding.
And we'll talk offline.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Add to that, please.
That's actually already included in this bill that we're working on, an interim report for and a final report for December 1. So you'll have all that information.
May I add to that, please?
Yes, Senator Hershey.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, CT9 and a number of us have talked about this. I'd also like to make sure that we take a look at what other states are doing as well, too. Maryland is one of the only states where only the employer contributes to this. And in many other states, this added, or this tax for, funding the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund is shared by both the employer and the employee. And I think it'd be important to take a look at what other states are doing. I know New Jersey does that as well, too. And if that's the goal, that we're trying to, find a way that there's more benefit or more help for anybody that is unemployed, I think we should take a look at all different means of ways of adding to the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator.
Okay, thank you.
And let me just say this. We're doing, and I know that Donna, the interim report is due July 1st. I'm assuming they're going to make the deadline for the interim report. Yes? No?
Yes, we make deadlines, Delegate Carey. We do.
Okay.
Lawyers over here, we'll make a deadline.
No offense to Delegate Wilson, but I see, Donna, you have another question?
Well, now, I can't believe that I'm agreeing so much with Delegate Wilson today. It's a great day. But we have had an agreement since I've been on the Oversight Committee, which has been now maybe 10 years. And prior to that, we were always looking at moving up the maximum weekly benefit. And it was something that had been agreed on between labor and business maybe 15 years ago. And it's gotten watered down. I hear what Senator Hershey says. Let's, look both ways. But if we're going to look at all the contributions, then we really need to look at how far we raise this. And like Delegate Wilson said, some states go to 52,000. So we need to look at that. But I have another concern. And this concern happened when the $300 extension was abruptly taken away from workers. And, then I see or hear where small businesses, they're not going to have to pay UI on employees until January 22nd, 2022. And other things that are being done for the employers. And then I hear we're not getting people applying for our jobs. We need to look at what the search requirements are. And I really am getting the sense that there are some in the state that want to use UI policies as forcing workers to take very bad jobs or jobs that are under their employment. Let's face it, with the pandemic, people have changed. 60% of people went online and took courses, so their resumes are better. They have had to take care of their families, so they're not going to be looking at jobs that won't give them a schedule a weeks in advance and just says, well, you're on 24-hour, on call, and you'll get your schedule whenever. Workers are actually different than they were a year ago. And I kind of feel like UI is being looked at as a hammer to force people into work that is under their skills or what they don't want. And I don't want to see that, because I know that that's not the secretary or assistant secretary's intent.
Oh, Donna, if I may, that's certainly not our intent. And that's exactly the reason we have worked with our workforce division so hard, and with our not only the feedback from our claimants and the feedback from our employers, but the best practices across the country to expand this list of work search activities so that we can ensure that our claimants are finding not just employment, but meaningful employment. And if they need additional skills, if they need barriers removed, if they need time for that training, especially in this, first phase of coming out of the pandemic, that's the exact purpose of the flexibility in allowing, other activities to be submitted and logged while they are transitioning back into the workforce.
I want to add one thing, Donna. We talked about this topic in other UI oversight committees, but a claimant is not penalized for refusing work. They're penalized for refusing suitable work. And there's a term of art of suitability that you match up against their skill sets. So no one's required to, if you're an astrophysicist, to flip burgers. If you refuse that job, that's not going to prevent you from collecting unemployment benefits. So I can share with you all of the different factors we look into when someone refuses suitable work.
Okay, and
Okay,
when you're
Delegate.
one more. Just when you do the when you are giving us, the solvency and because that's always been a big issue. All of the policies that we have in here to help our small businesses and large businesses, would you also factor in and give us the cost of, what is not being paid into right now? From our businesses and where we have to go on the chart for that.
Okay, thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
I think Mike, and then we'll go, Ned has some questions, so, but Mike, go ahead and go.
Yeah, if I can, just to follow up on Ms. Edwards' comments. Number one, I mean, it's no particular industry that these job openings are impacting. It's not like it's just hourly wage positions. I have numerous members, anecdotally speaking, that reach out to me and say, look, we have salary positions that start at $65,000 a year. We offer them, we pay for the training for these folks to get up to par with the rest of our technicians, and they just can't find the qualified help. So, I think I kind of take exception to the idea that the business community is somehow using unemployment insurance to force people into jobs that they may or may not want to take. But the other part is, and correct me if I'm wrong, no matter what, even the employers that are selecting deferring their payment, they still will have to pay all of that money back, correct? They're not getting it for free. They're not just, skating by, correct? They will eventually have to pay that bill.
Yes, if they do not pay their taxes for a given year by before January 31st, 30, when we file a 940 with IRS, then that employer will not get a feudal tax credit.
Okay, thank you.
So now that's that employer's decision whether or not they want to not have the tax credit and go into a payment plan that has them paying 2021 taxes beyond January 30, 2022. But
Gotcha. Thank you, Dana.
Sure. Mhm.
Okay,
Okay.
Ned?
Yep.
Delegate Carey?
Thank you, Senator. You know, now that we're after July 3rd, when the federal benefits end, I guess my questions really are now assessing and catching up. So once we finish with this federal program on July 3rd, and I'm assuming there will be fewer claimants eligible for unemployment, you know, we still understand that there are many claims that have been that still need to be processed and resolved. There are thousands of claimants who've still been on hold for weeks to months. So I guess my question is with all of these outstanding claims, it's now time to reassess and assess where we are. So what are you all going to do? What processes do you have planned to catch up, to expedite the process, to clear the outstanding cases? You know, we've talked a lot about staffing and the bill that was signed back in April. So what are your plans to catch up and get at these 3%? Because, you know, it's great that we've done 97%, but it's that 3% that we continue to hear from. They're the problem. So what's the plan to do this going forward after July 3rd?
Can I take that, Tiffany?
Yes, go ahead, Dana.
So we have already developed a plan and are executing on the plan to get that pending workload, the burn down rate, to get it down to a manageable pre-pandemic level. And what we've done as part of that is to train our staff all to do more of these work items. We've imposed some more pronounced benchmark expectations for each of our internal employees that they have to get done every day. We have instituted mandatory overtime that will continue until we get back into federal compliance with all of the numbers, and the workload is back manageable to pre-pandemic. And we have also instituted some incentives for employees to exceed the expectations, the daily expectations for work completion. And the completions that count are the ones that resolve a claimant's issues to full resolution decision. And so we have, I guess we've been in the training mode for the staff org to do more of this work for us. And what's going to happen after July 3rd is that the potential for humongous issues to present will precipitously decline. And so we'll know what our pending backlog is, and I'll reassess that burn down chart to get that backlog done. But we have been getting all the resources prepared and trained and working on some of these items so we can get it done. I anticipate, don't hold me to it, but by the fall, early fall, which we should be in good pre-pandemic shape.
And how has the system, since we set it up, since it's come online, how has the system been working?
The system Beacon system is improving every day. When you launch something as big as that, to automate all of your administrative processes, the first year that upon that implementation, you're going to encounter a lot of data conversion issues and functionality that we didn't think of during the development phase. And I think we've reached the precipice. I think we're coming down the other side.
Okay.
Dana, I want to just interject and remind the committee that the Beacon system was designed and developed over a 5-year period, and obviously never anticipated being launched during a pandemic when there were 10 brand new federal programs that had to be added into the design and development and testing. So that, of course, I know this group understands that, but that really adds to any IT vendor's plate when you sign a contract and then that kind of workload gets added on at the time of the highest volume in the history of our program. So we've been pleased to get as far as we are. We know our legacy system could never have handled this volume. But like Dana said, we work with the vendor every single day, because as issues arise and as programs end or as overlapping rules change from the federal government, things have to be reprogrammed and tweaked in the system.
So Delegate Carey, I was going to say that we were actually blessed. Hindsight is 2020, that we were in the last stages of launching this Beacon product when the pandemic hit. So we were able to leverage all of that development, create that one-stop application, utilizing the work that we had done. So we quickly stood up that application to administer those new federal programs. And that's what the Beacon system has allowed us to do, to stand up programs quicker and without interruption of service to customers. When we had to launch the CARS in December after Christmas, the ARP Act in March, the banking transition, the everything is more agile, it's safe, it's in the cloud, which I learned is not actually in a cloud, it's in some mountain somewhere, but it's a cloud-based system. And if I had to do it all over again, I mean, I would.
And I see Delegate Wilson with his hand up, but I just have one more question about fraud. And we've been talking about the fraud holds, but what we're seeing in our office is that people seem to be having a whole bunch of difficulty, when they're going to upload documents. And it's this, they try to upload them repeatedly. They have to wait each time. And then they tell them that they're denied. I mean, what are you guys doing? Are you trying to make this process any smoother?
Yeah, so with the, we just awarded LexisNexis the contract to handle identity verification. And we're in the middle of the requirements and all that to insert that tool at the beginning of the process. And their identity verification process will not require a claimant to upload documents unless they failed all of the other protocols that they have in place before. So that document uploading piece will only occur if they fail all of these other tools that we run them through. So we are evolving to make the system seamless, and I can't remember how they call it for the customer, where they're not bothered by it. They won't even know this is happening. So we are getting there with the new vendor.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Delegate Wilson.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Edward. My question, I want to go back to Diane, because we talked about this requirement for work search. And you basically explained how there's at this point, 30 options in addition to actually showing proof of applications. That's correct. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have self-guided activities like the virtual recruiter, skill self-assessment, all things count.
It is, and I'm asking this, let me couch it with this, because it's my hope that that's the new way, that this is not something temporary, but this is what we're going to stay, because I've heard people discuss, I have a company, my wife has several corporations, and we are competitive employers. We have to offer things, incentives. If we want our best employers, we offer AFLAC, we offer good leadership or telework. We don't just dismiss our workers. We also make sure they have a known schedule. That's how employers compete. And again, I don't want to be contrary to what Mike and Kayla were saying, but there is a clear avenue of people trying to say, well, if we cut off unemployment benefits, they got to come back to work, versus motivating people to come back to work by however you want to design your business. Because I know I designed mine for that specific reason. So I just want to make sure that the way that you're laying this out with this new work search is actually going to be the future, not just something temporarily.
No, it is the future. But what also is new is we put in these accountability pieces.
Yes.
If you don't engage in these, you could potentially not receive your benefits.
Oh, without a doubt. Yeah, I definitely believe in that.
It is the new active search for work requirement.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Dana,
Yes.
I talked about the phone calling and the monitoring and them. Do you go through those calls? Because from what has been said through my office, that things just don't match up with whatever is being done. And that's, I think, part of the situation that we're all in. I don't know about other offices, but people will call and say, well, I did this, and I did this. And the case manager says something different than the actual person trying to get their, so.
So every time a situation is brought to our attention about, let's say, a rude agent or one where the communication was not conveyed in the appropriate way, we are definitely following up on that, because again, we have these outside vendors that we have to educate and teach what to say and how to interpret, what to say to the customer. And that is an ongoing process. We have to reinforce those tools. So we definitely do follow up and address any situations of the ones you described.
Okay, because that's been one of the most frustrating things, and there's a lot of frustrating things, and you all know that, so.
Right, we have those challenges, like if you're bringing on a new employee, we have the Lorca's our adjudication arm, that's a new vendor, and we have required them to learn how to adjudicate in 40 hours, okay? Right there. It's got to be a whole lot of hand holding, because you can't learn to adjudicate in 40 hours. So
Maybe, you know what? Maybe you should train all of our staff, and then we would know what was going on there in the office.
I thought you said nobody wants
understand.
Nobody wants to work for me, remember? So I'll take it. Nobody
we need Unemployment 101. That's what we
Right.
I'll definitely teach that.
So,
All right.
Senator, I have another question.
Okay.
I mean, I could go all day.
Well, we all have lots of questions. That's why we're going to continue this format for a while.
But let me just ask this one real quick. This is about, we haven't talked about it, but we're getting calls. This is about overpayments, people who've been overpaid. And so where are we? I know that it's handled, in another department or whatever, but what are we doing with overpayments? What are we looking at? I mean, I'm starting to see those calls come into the office.
So an overpayment, the overpayments and that whole process, if a customer receives a notice about that, they also receive the determination which caused the overpayment. And there's appeal rights on there for them to, if they think that it's wrong, and ways for it to be explained to them. Now, overpayments were being caused for a variety of reasons over this pandemic, not to get into all of them right now. We can talk offline, but that claimant whose overpayment was erroneous would not have to pay that overpayment. Now, some of these overpayments were caused by the defects in the system that we have repaired. A claimant can always ask for a waiver of overpayment whenever it was not the fault of the claimant and it appears to be against good equity and conscience to have them pay for it. Any claimants who have overpayments that are bona fide have robust payment plans for claimants too, like we do for employers, to pay it back. And then we have collection efforts because we always have to be making proper payments to the right people as stewards of the trust fund.
And so, with the backlog, are you sufficiently staffed to handle the backlog? And I guess the other question I have is, if you remember, we had, I believe in House Bill 1002, we had addressed the issue of overpayments. And I guess the question is, has that, well, I guess the whole bill, now that it's law, has it been implemented?
So we're in the various stages. I think the overpayment waiver language, I think the appeal rights, we've changed the documents to reflect that. The request for the waiver, the appealing of a waiver determination, that has been implemented. And all of the new legislation that's passed.
So I just want to make sure. So in the bill, it was that you need to give them an explicit reason for the overpayment and then give them 30 days to appeal that notice. That's been done.
That has been changed. So
Okay.
the reason, a lot of times during the pandemic, the claimant didn't understand how this overpayment came. We took care of that before this legislation was passed, because every overpayment is created by underlying issue. And that underlying issue would come to the claimant in a determination, a decision on the eligibility. We took that same reason, if it created an overpayment, that claimant would also get an overpayment notice. And I think that's what your offices, your constituents would call you. What is this notice? We made sure those two, there was a timing issue with the underlying determination and the notice. We closed the gap on the timing issue, and then we reflected the same reason in the determination in the overpayment notice, so that the claimant could understand what caused that overpayment.
Okay.
So, that was before the legislation. So we're further refining that, but we have a staff that deals with overpayment, improper payments. It is actually our investigative staff on fraud. The unit is for any improper payments, rectifying those and replenishing the trust fund for when you collect improper payments.
Okay.
Okay, you know what? Do you ever find out who the fraud is being done by, and do we prosecute those fraudulent claims? We can?
We have partnerships with various law enforcement agencies, like the Office of Inspector General, DOL, DOJ, state police, and we are sharing information all the time about bad actors. And when they decide, we don't have any law enforcement authority here where we can go make arrests and do investigations.
And has that happened?
Yeah, they've done some stings. I think it's been some arrests. Oh yeah, we probably should do more announcement of it as it for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would be nice. Not nice, but it would be great if you could just give us how many that you have really prosecuted and how many have you caught, I guess, and then how many are prosecuted. It just would be interesting.
Senator, that would be partly a question for Maryland State Police, and we work with them very closely. But Dana's right. We know a little bit about several of their investigations that have resulted in action being taken and warrants being issued. That being said, they are also working very closely with the federal DOJ, FBI, Office of Inspector General, and our state.
Okay.
And sometimes I'm told that these investigations have to overlap with information that's connected to multiple other states. And sometimes the announcements of everything that's being discovered when people being prosecuted takes years. So we also have pushed and asked for more of that information, because I think it's important for Marylanders to understand that they're not getting away with this fraud. They will be prosecuted.
Good. That's what I like to hear. Does anybody else have any other thoughts or questions?
Senator, on that, just quickly, I know we already talked about defining the difference between fraud versus identity theft, but it would be very interesting to know how much of this is being done in state or how much of this is being done out of state. Because being a former prosecutor, I realize obviously these cases take years, as well as in the investigation part. But I would like to know, because I think it's a lot bigger than people understand, and it's just not one guy going behind his computer and stealing my, it's a organization stealing 100,000 names and backgrounds. And so I think that would also be very interesting to find out how many of these are being done in this country, in the state, and just the dynamic of it, because again, it just comes off as, like welfare fraud. You think welfare queen versus individuals with a distinct and a complex operation. So I would be very interested in knowing what those numbers are in and out of state as well.
Right. And I think that's very important too, that the public know that that's what's going on. The big word now in this app is always about cyber security. And maybe we need to work with some of those folks on the cyber security task force or oversight committee and try
I need to pass my Maryland Personal Information Protection Act bill next year.
Yes, okay.
To help do this. That's what I was going to ask, about protecting this information. I mean, when information gets stolen either by me or, we've heard instances where things have been, personal information has been sent to the wrong person. I guess the question is, are you guys looking at like multi-factor authentication? So basically, when you go into your retirement system, you put in your password, your ID and your password, but then it sends you a code to your phone and you put that in, which is we need to be able to do those things to help protect.
Mm-hmm.
I give up my password unknowingly or things like that. So have you been thinking along those?
That's a use case that's going to be implemented with the LexisNexis tool.
Okay.
The multi-factor authentication.
And Delegate Carey, we obviously already use the reCAPTCHA, where you have to plug in the numbers and letters that you see in the system to ensure you're not a robot. Ina talked earlier about all the ever-changing kind of triggers in our system to help us flag the fraud. We can't tell you exactly what all those triggers are, because we would then be, giving notice to the fraudsters as to how to get around them. And they do that every day, which is why we have to constantly evaluate and change those.
No, I understand that, but you can do things like multi-factor authentication. Everybody's doing it now. It's just another layer. Is it foolproof 100%? No, nothing is. And it just gives you that additional layer of security. So I'm glad that you're thinking, that you're thinking along latest and greatest technology. You're thinking along those lines.
Does anyone else have any other questions? Well, I think this has been very productive. Does anyone have any thoughts as if we go forward having an oversight committee meeting? Are you interested? And if so, what are some things that you would like to look at?
Madam Senator, I've already said my piece of the things.
Okay. Yes, you have.
So yeah, I'm interested, but I've already laid out what I'd like to hear about.
Okay. Senator Hershey, do you have any thoughts?
Madam Chair, no, I said the same thing as well too. I think again, there's a lot of things that we need to do going forward.
Okay.
So just from that point, thanks.
Okay.
And just one last request, if I could. We had talked about the notice for the fraud. Could you send a copy to us, just what it looks like? Okay, I appreciate it.
And I think maybe, there was a question a while back about when we would be meeting again, but I think it would be very interesting to meet after July 3rd.
Yep.
And towards the end of the month. And again, I know people are on vacations and that sort of thing, but if we continue, we can just do just online like we're doing today. And the other question I have, it said you had mentioned something about July 4th. Is it going to be open on July 4th? Can people get through on the computer on July 4th?
Okay. The computer system is always open. 20.
Okay. Okay.
So I believe that we have given our agents off on the actual July 4th holiday. but we will have our phone lines open on the 5th, which is, I believe, the Monday that is a state holiday for the 4th, but we're going to have those phone lines open.
Okay. And you talked about a virtual agent. Can you just say very quickly what a virtual agent is? That online?
Yes, if you visit our website, the virtual agent pops up and asks if you have a question, and it goes out.
Okay. Okay. I don't know. No other questions?
Huh? Okay.
Oh, Donna?
In HB 1002, there was supposed to be the establishment of a single point of contact for claims unresolved after 8 weeks. Have we done that? A single point of contact after
right.
8 weeks?
So,
because that's what we're dealing with. So many people have these long cases and they still don't have a resolve or who to contact.
right, Donna, we obviously reviewed that, and we believe the intent of the legislation was to have kind of an ombudsman position. We actually don't think that one person could handle that role, and which is why we have trained and increased the capacity and added kind of case managers for, for a larger population. Dana mentioned that we've trained 400 of those Accenture agents to do the higher level work, meaning the follow-up, the updating with the constituents and making sure they have all the information. Obviously, we are still working through our budget and with our PINs and trying to hire as many people as we can. So that is something we are looking to do. But I think Dana might be able to elaborate. Her team already has over agents serving the constituents.
That was not the, I did not believe an ombudsman was our overarching goal. I believe that it was just a single point of contact for an individual. You could have obviously multiple people filling this roles, but the problem was people being passed around from person to person to person, not so much a specific ombudsman to handle every single issue that's older than 8 weeks. It was to ensure that once you hit that demarcation, that you had one person that you could contact instead of a multitude of individuals that would be passing you around.
Thank you, Delegate. Then that absolutely has been accomplished, because when claimants come through the Salesforce system, they are assigned a case manager, and that is their one point of contact. So they can always reach out to that case manager. We have instructed those agents to communicate with those constituents at least every week, if possible. We know it doesn't always happen. We are constantly and continually training our staff in how to, communicate and provide substantive updates to our constituents. But that was our goal in training those agents to be able to communicate and provide updates on claims.
Well, as I said, we'll get together sometime at the end of July or at the beginning of August. Does that sound okay with everyone?
Yeah, I think
getting married, so y'all will have the meeting without Dana Freeman, because my son.
Now, when are you're getting married?
July 31st through August 8th, I'm doing family vacation for the first time. My son's getting married, so y'all can.
Oh, your son? I thought you were getting married. Okay.
I'm old. I'm married.
Okay. Well, we'll see. We'll plan around you, and after you're done, we'll.
Okay.
We'll do it all.
And the other thing that I want to say is whatever we can do, and I'm sure I'm speaking for all the legislators here, whatever we can do to help you, please, as I've always said, let's work together and let's do the best job we can, because we all have the same goal, is to make this, first of all, go away. Second of all, that we help those that need the help, whether it's the employees or the employers. Whatever we can do, we will do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me say this, I think that we need to definitely have a meeting probably after August 8th, but I'm looking forward to seeing the report July 1st, because I'm sure that's going to be, in my opinion, a big topic of what we're going to talk about in our next meeting is the report and your interim findings. The only other thing that I might ask is that I've heard from some of my other colleagues that they've sent requests over, they have specific questions. I can talk to you offline about who they are. If you can just answer them and get them back to them, that would be greatly appreciated. But again, I just thank you guys for being here, and Dana, I thank you for taking more time than you had with us today.
Yes.
And Secretary and Tiffany, you always give us as much time as we need, and appreciate that. So
Yes.
again, thank you for
And,
doing this
okay.
today and being here.
And I just keep hearing about the quality of assurance. Please, let's have a conversation about that the next time we meet. I think it's very important that, because they're not matching up with what's going on in my office. And one other thing, real quick. We always said we wanted a phone number that had the Department of Labor on that, and we never got that.
You're talking about the caller ID?
Yes.
It does work, but if the claimant's phone doesn't have that service, it won't ring it up. It's like a virtual yellow pages. So that claimant would have to program our number into their phone.
Okay.
And I think we put messaging out on how the claimant could do that to see.
Okay.
If the
All right,
carrier doesn't have that service, it won't show up as Maryland Department of Labor. But if they program our numbers in, and I guess we could resend that out to everyone in their phone, when we call it, will show up.
Yeah. That would be very helpful, because if everybody's like me, if I don't recognize the number, I won't answer. So.
Can I ask one further question, Madam?
Yes.
What do you anticipate? What's your estimated number of cases that you'll close, since we're going to leave the $1.5 million or whatever billion laying on the table on this $300 extension? So how many cases do you think that you will close by July, starting with July, which definitely then will help your case count and you to reach back to normalcy by the fall?
So you're asking about the FPUC going away, and then how many cases? So to the extent those claimants have pending issues, we're going to resolve those. So when the program goes away July 3rd, we're still going to service that federal customer, that federal claimant.
Good.
To the extent we're not turning away from them at all. Everybody will be serviced.
All right. I guess it's that time.
Thank you. Yep.
Everybody's busy, and I know I've been going on. So we will talk again after August 8th.
So
congratulations, Mom.
Thank you.
Okay.
All over but the paying. So we move to adjourn.